What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Love you guys. Could not do it without you. Thanks so much for being with us. Jam-packed on a Monday edition of the show. We've got an interview that is going to blow you away. We've got Clemson choked a job or Clemson screwed. Which one was it of the two? We will answer that question. Which NFL fan base has suffered the most coming your way on the show today? We've got Chris Phillips. We have got Andy Reid entering the class of whom? We have the top 5 at 5. We have Do Not Be That Guy in Sports. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. The Renewal by Anderson fan phone is there for you at 844-326-3663, as is the text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Guys, I got a load of football takes to get to today, okay? Load of them. But I just want to share, and I won't get into details on this, but I'll share with you a brief part of the conversation I had with Diesel off the air just now. Sometimes, I think you guys think, because of what we do, we live just like this unbelievable life, and we have the dream jobs, and so much of that is true. But I have had a day today, okay, where I have swung and missed at least 4 or 5 times. I'm doing, because my digestion is a little jacked up right now, I'm doing an elimination diet tomorrow. I'm starting that tomorrow. So you can do anything you want today. And so I went to a fast food place because I can eat whatever I want. And now after I went there, I can't find my wallet. I gave them my card. I never gave them my wallet. I got back my card. Now I don't know where my wallet is. I'm serious. And this is like the 5th or 6th thing like that's happened today. Okay? So if you want good luck, just get the hell away from me, because it's not happening today for me, okay? Just please know that all of the bleep that happens to you guys on a day in, day out basis, we are very, very human over here, okay? Very human. There is yet to be a single show where I haven't made a mistake. Perhaps I've already made my mistake by sharing this with you. We will find out as the show rolls along. Guys, last night, what a day of football. AFC Championship, NFC Championship. Whereas I was right on both college football playoff games, Michigan over Alabama, Washington over Texas, I was wrong on both AFC and NFC conference championship games. Close games, but I was wrong. There are so many jumping off points. I was thinking about this today. Do you guys realize that the talking points on the NFL are endless? They're endless. I mean, there's so many jumping off points. So I will start with this. I believe that Baltimore is the Dallas of the AFC. If anyone's seen either one of them, if you see a Baltimore Raven or a Dallas Cowboy, please give them the Heimlich maneuver. They're choking, and they're choking repeatedly. Now, I ask you guys, and I ask you guys this with all due respect. You know that when someone says with all due respect, the other shoe's about to drop, right? It's about to get real. Do not put Detroit in that category. It's not just about having a lead and losing a lead. What does it mean to choke in sports? And it's like, Diesel, this happened last night, and it surprises me. Some people have just lost all ability in terms of reading comprehension. People were sending freezing cold takes. You guys know that guy, right? Anytime somebody in the media is wrong, he blasts it out to 500,000 people. People were sending my stuff to freezing cold takes last night for this tweet, and it was at halftime, okay? Detroit's up 24-7. And I said, the city of Detroit is worried about an epic collapse, but Dan Campbell isn't going to let his foot off the gas. Everything he does, every move he makes, is about making it as difficult as possible on the opponent. Watch Detroit remain aggressive here. Then San Francisco starts coming back. And you have all these yahoos going, whoa, whoa. Freezing Cold Takes, look at this. And Freezing Cold Takes said, yeah, Mark was right. Like he's cautioning against an epic collapse, saying they're going to remain aggressive. They have remained aggressive. So, guys, on the one hand, all right, I don't think Detroit choked yesterday. I thought a bunch of different plays went against them, but they did what they always do. You know, in 4th and 3 situations or less in opponents' territory this year, according to my good friend Jim Costa, Detroit was 18 out of 21. They did what they always do. The analytics said you go for the 4th down in those scenarios that they went for them. Up 24-10, 4th and 2. Down by 3, 4th and 3. The analytics say go for them. That's what Detroit does. That balls to the wall, no bleeps given mentality is what got Detroit where they are. Problem is, they weren't going up against the Jets yesterday. They weren't going up against the Bears yesterday. They were going up against the Niners. And so for me, I'll be real with you, I had a problem with the decisions to go for to go for it. To me, I think when you rely on analytics so much as Detroit did, okay, you allow analytics to overrule our sense of time and place. And when you do all that, you've jumped the shark. Now, I believe Dan Campbell should be the coach of the year in the NFL. Two of the most difficult things to do in life are to change a culture and to change a reputation. These are two of the most difficult feats in life. He did it in a year, 2 years in Detroit. Transition was last year, full changes this year. He's the coach of the year. These are not mutually exclusive statements. He's the coach of the year. He's done an unbelievable job. I love him to death. And I was also screaming at my television when he refused to kick a field goal. You know, and everybody's going to have a different opinion on this. And the analytics said, and this is unbelievable, in that scenario, 7 minutes, 32 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. Here's what the analytics say. 38.8% kick the field goal. 39.1% go for it. The difference is 0.3%. So in other words, analytics says do whatever you want. But guys, you're down by 3. You're in field goal range. There's 7 minutes left to go in the game. You know, like there's a time to be aggressive and there's a time to be smart. And my wife, at the time, unbeknownst to me, was filming the game yesterday. While that was happening, she had her phone up. She's filming the game. And she caught me on video during that process, during that time. Now, the audio quality of it isn't great, but I'll share with you exactly what it sounds like. Detroit completes a 7-yard pass, makes it 4th and 3. Here's what you hear. Kick the field goal, Dan. Dan, kick the field goal. No, Dan, don't think about it. Dan, kick the Dan, what are you doing, Dan? Dan, be aggressive, not reckless. Dan, what are you doing? Then the team starts lining up. Oh, no. You lose either way here, man. Even if you make the first down, you're going to be more reckless in the future because you got this one. This is not the right incomplete pass. And then I think I said, not really a swear word, but a harsher version of the word dang, right? And I think I said that, and that was it. And guys, I want to be very clear about something. The results in life doesn't make you right or wrong. You can make good decisions that end with a bad result, okay? But you made a good decision. You can make bad decisions, and you got lucky. It ends with a good result. I evaluate decisions, not results. I question the decision to go for it in that spot. I really, really do. And I will have and hold that opinion. Before we get to the AFC and AFC championship game, I want to give a quick shout out to Chris Kelly, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Chris is an outstanding real estate agent. My wife and I have checked out a few homes in the area, and she has done just an outstanding job by us. Every single need that you could possibly want, she's got you covered from beginning to end. She has, what do I always tell you guys on this show? The best ability is what? Availability. She is always available. She's always helpful. She answers all of your questions. She's so kind and supportive, and she truly cares. Chris Kelly, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, our tip of the cap to you. Thank you so much for all you've done for Angela and I. You are amazing. AFC championship game. AFC championship game. Kansas City and Baltimore. Guys, again, you heard me say this, and then the result worked out the same way I've been telling you, okay? I've told you. What have I shared with you? I've said Lamar Jackson is not the MVP. You say, why? I go back to previous seasons. You say, Mark Ryan, it's not based on previous seasons. It's based on this season. And I say to you, I have to go back to previous seasons because the value is not determined in the regular season. Value is determined in the postseason. Lamar Jackson has already shown you that the regular season doesn't matter because they do great things in the regular season and then wet the bed in the postseason. And they do that every single time. Now, I said, you know what? I really think this year is going to be different. And let's not take any credit away from the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a true champion. But this was the year to get the Chiefs. If I told you the Chiefs would have 17 points, that's it. And they wouldn't score a point after halftime. You're saying to me, Baltimore won that game easily, right? Baltimore won that game. I had a friend that picked that game. I want to say the score was 48-17. It was pants, Diesel. 48-17 Baltimore. They had the roster to roll Kansas City. Kansas City lacks elite playmakers. Travis Kelce, or should I call him Travis Swift now, is collecting the senior citizen discount, man. And he's their best weapon. And with the most flawed Kansas City that you have out there, you couldn't find a way to win?
Mark, if you're a rich man, if you're Travis Kelce, like Travis Kelce rich, he's, probably got $100 million in the bank. I don't know how much he's made over his career. How much would it cost you to change your last name to Swift? If you married Taylor Swift, and you were an old-fashioned kind of guy, and you wanted Taylor to take your last name, she's not gonna, right? Because that's her public persona name. She's worth way more than you are, Travis, even though you're worth a ton of money. How much would it cost for you to change your last name to Swift?
What if Taylor said, I need you to do that for us to continue this relationship? You do it then for free, right?
You would, but that's not the hypothetical question. Like, how much would it cost for you to take your wife's last name?
Who is paying this sum?
She is. Hypothetical. Just go with it here for a second. Don't poke holes in it. Okay. Hypothetical situation here. She's buying she's buying the naming rights to you.
I don't even really like the last name Ryan. She can have it for free. But if I have the last name Kelce, what do I give a damn, Diesel? I'll give it to her cheap. $100K.
100K. Now you're Travis Swift.
Now I'm Travis Swift. Look at that. Sounds like I'm a country star, doesn't it? I sound like a country star. This is a great thing. It's a great thing. By the way, she's an amazing girlfriend. She's on the field. She's kissing them. She's hugging the family. The family's crying. Like, what's one of the things you look for in a mate? Like, what's a trait you look for?
Trustworthiness.
Well, yeah, that means looks. You know that means looks. We've talked about that for 3 years. You keep calling it trustworthy. And the reason is that when Diesel talks to a pretty girl, he believes every word that comes out of her mouth.
Makes me sound like much less of a pig if I say you're trustworthy.
Very, very
not
trustworthy.
You're effing hot.
I don't know what she said, but to Diesel, it made a hell of a lot of sense. You know, it really did. That's how we roll. But anyway, guys, she's an amazing girlfriend, and that dedication, let's be honest, right? Like, we've all been in relationships where we haven't had that and wish we would, you know? My mom told me when I was single, 2.5 years ago, she said, Mark, I see you with somebody who's going to be a huge cheerleader for you personally and your career, and just somebody who supports you and cheers you on. And like, I'm getting ready yesterday, and we have a big show today, had a big show yesterday, right? And it's a big show. I'm hosting a pregame on the network, and that's big. And my wife goes, honey, you are going to absolutely nail it. You're going to have one of your best shows. I believe in you. You go kick butt. You're going to do an awesome job. And I felt like I got my Taylor Swift there. I got my Taylor Swift right there. That's exactly the kind of support that Travis Swift gets. All right, my friends, what do you say we hit you with something? Are you guys wearing socks? Are you wearing socks? Madcraft, J.D. Wyatt, Brandon Keeler.
Dan B's in there.
Dan B's in there. Spur Daddy. Are you guys wearing socks? I'm about to blow them off. You are not going to believe the person that I spoke to. All I'm going to share with you is that, okay? And get ready to be blown away by what you hear next, right here on these airwaves. It's the Fan Upstate, and this is Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. Enjoy the next 15 minutes. Guest joining us here on the show, none other than Broadway Joe Namath, joins us here on CBS Sports Radio. Joe, I spoke to your incredibly friendly assistant during the week. She didn't know if you were going to be able to call in. I'm thrilled, sir, that you found the time. Hope 2024 is treating you wonderfully. How are you today, sir?
I'm healthy, thank God. You know, the family's healthy and in good shape, so we're thankful for all that. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely, I hear you, and my well wishes for that to continue are certainly at play here as well. Joe, you obviously, and I got to ask you one question about the guarantee. You guys, as an 18-point underdog in 1969, when you beat the Colts, when you made your infamous guarantee, did any part of you at any time regret it? And I ask you that, Joe, from this sense. Whenever I have been a little bit too braggadocious in my career, or I'm too confident about something, I end up losing sleep because I'm worried about the fallout if I'm wrong. Did that happen to you at all before Super Bowl III?
No. I mean, I did take some flack from our coaches and from some teammates and all, understandably. But, no, that's the way I felt. That's just being honest. I was, and it was in response to a wise guy in the back of a room at a dinner in Miami Springs, Florida. And I was at the podium, and a guy yells out, "Hey, Namath, we're going to kick your you-know-what." Hey, wait a minute, man. I got news for you. We're going to win the game, I guarantee you. And that was that. You know, that was that. Of course, Coach Eubank, he was upset. And, you know, when we met, he did say that I gave the opposition some firewood to get them fired up, to get excited because they were overconfident coming in, and they're putting all the quotes that I said up on the bulletin board to get the players fired up. I said, well, Coach, if they need that, they are in trouble.
Super Bowl champions.
Heck of a team.
Yes, sir.
We had the best team, Mark.
You really did, Joe. And I'll tell you what, you know, I don't know why your guarantee gets all the infamy, when an NFL coach said, with you coming over from the AFL, before that game, Namath plays his first pro football game today. What a slap in the face that was. You guys are beating Baltimore 16-0 after 3 quarters. So, like I look at your guarantee as showing supreme confidence in something you had already foreseen was going to take place. But there were very much doubters as well. In that sense, Joe, I'll ask you this. From one underdog to another, if you could speak to the Detroit Lions today, what message would you have for them?
It's an opportunity that's may only come in their sports career once, and they know that. I don't think I could tell them anything that their coaches and the players haven't said to one another themselves. They know exactly where they are. They know what they have to do to win, and the other team does too. And Mark, we're human. It's human to error. Whatever team doesn't beat themselves as much. I had a college coach at the University of Alabama named Paul Bear Bryant. And when we had a meeting, the very first meeting our freshman class had with Coach Bryant, and to this day, I remember the number of freshmen we had. There were 44 of us. And quickly after, we didn't get out of August practice yet, and there were 20 of us left there. That's how hard the practices were.
Wow.
Anyway, Coach Bryant stood up there and told us, he says, I'm going to tell y'all something. I'm going to teach you how to keep from beating yourselves. How to keep from beating yourselves. And I'm thinking, well, what the heck's that talking about? That sounds like scared or being afraid or whatever. No. It comes down to discipline, not illegal motion, jumping off sides, not making stupid penalties, executing, throwing the ball accurately whenever you have a receiver open, but we all miss receivers from time to time for a variety of reasons, and catching the ball when it hits both hands. And that's not always done. So we're not perfect animals, and whatever team can play well and keep from making the errors that when they look back on the game, they say, oh, we shoulda, I shoulda, I coulda, I woulda. Yeah, excuse me. These are I use the word great, 4 wonderful teams. And there's going to be ultimately one left that will win the championship.
NFL legend, Broadway Joe Namath, joining us here on CBS Sports Radio. To stick with that theme, Joe, Kalen DeBoer, new Alabama coach, no ties to Alabama, but did an incredible job. And if you look at his resume, all he does is win no matter what level he's at. How do you feel about that hire?
I have known Greg Burns since he's been the athletic director at Alabama, and I know he has done his homework, not just recently, but for years, in and out. He wasn't sure when Coach Saban was going to move on, but he was ready for that time. Every year Coach Saban was there, Greg Burns, he had somebody in mind in case something happened to Nick, and he was prepared for Coach Saban's move.
What a job. What a job. And Kalen DeBoer, I think, is going to do a great job there. He doesn't have to be Nick Saban. He just has to be himself, and I believe he can, and I believe he will. Joe, I have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that Kansas City is actually an underdog in today's game. I imagine it's because they couldn't keep Tyreek Hill, maybe don't have the weapons on the outside that they once did. Do you believe they can go to Baltimore and get it done?
Yeah, I believe they can go to Baltimore and get it done. I believe any one of these 4 teams, whether on the road or at home, are good enough to win. And I told you why in the first place. I think it's going to come down to the team that doesn't make the errors, that makes the plays they're supposed to make. They can keep from beating themselves mentally. Like I said, you forget a snap count and you flinch or you move. It's going to come down to the team that plays the better game. unless the officials get involved in a poor way. And we've seen some lousy calls over the years.
What do you see when you watch Patrick Mahomes that makes him who he is? What makes him truly special, Joe?
Well, it's between the ears. Let's start with between the ears. You can have fine athletes, excellent athletes, but if you don't know them personally, I've learned over the years how's this guy thinking. You know, what's the thought process? Patrick is a smart man, quick-witted. It starts out between the ears, and that's from when he was a little guy growing up. All of these players today that are certainly playing the position, at least that I know about, they're ready. They're ready. It's a team game. It's not going to come down just to Patrick, man. It's not going to come down just to Lamar. It's a team game, whether you're Detroit or San Francisco. You know, you saw a young quarterback. Didn't they win one last year or whenever in San Francisco? It's a team game, and the players got to make the plays, not beat themselves.
Joe Namath joining us here on CBS Sports Radio. Joe, for those of us who will never experience what it's like to be the man in New York City, can you bring us there? By the way, that's all of us. None of us will ever get to be the man in New York City. But I just want to know, to the best of your ability, Joe, to walk a day in your shoes. What was that like?
First, let me go back to what I was talking about the game there. Also, we've been talking about the players. Excuse me, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinators, cats that are shuffling players in and out, they make mistakes too. The head coaches will own up to making mistakes too. It's not just the guys with the uniforms on out there running around. It takes a complete good work day for the coaches as well as the players to be able to win the game. And as far as my life in New York City, it was wonderful. New York is electric. I know over these last 20, 30 years how things have changed, man, and it's tough. I don't know the city as well, but back in the 60s, back with Woodstock happening and all these things going on, the 60s and the 70s were terrific.
You know, Joe, you had this unbelievable ability. We've seen some guys struggle in the New York media blitz. Randy Johnson immediately comes to mind. Some others just don't seem like they're cut out for, being under that level of a microscope. You had this way of just disarming the media. You had this way of, accepting accountability and being fully confident. How did you do that? I mean, a lot of guys can't do what you did.
I think a lot of guys do understand the situation. One of the things I learned even after my pro playing days is the media never allow facts to get in the way of a story. So you can't really take it to heart. And I didn't read about myself. I couldn't. I learned that it wasn't right reading about myself. And it either made me feel too good, thought I was something special maybe, but also when it was bad, it really got me angry. So it's a part of our life. We need the media, but as athletes go, I handled it fine. I didn't read about myself through most of my pro career.
Do you believe in the Jets' Aaron Rodgers experiment?
No, not now. Are you kidding me? First of all, you'd want to start out with an offensive line. I believe when they brought Aaron in, it lifted the entire team. The defense is a good defense, and it lifted the entire team. But Lady Luck, again, in these two games today, Lady Luck will play a role. Somebody's going to get hurt. I haven't seen many games. Can't recall games where somebody doesn't get injured, and that's going to change possibly the complexion of the game. So Lady Luck, you got to figure out. That football's not round, it's shaped funny. It bounces different ways. Aaron Rodgers came in and Lady Luck, boy, I don't know why she frowned on that particular day and player and fan base, and
Right.
it knocked the wind out of all of us, man. And then there was only hope, hope to come back. And the Jets, the offense didn't have the personnel to keep them in the hunt for the playoffs. Next year's a new year, and hopefully they can get some better personnel, or their personnel could improve. And offensively, again, it's a guy that handles the ball a lot. You want one of those guys for sure, like you have in the 4 playoff teams. And if Aaron's not there, they don't have that answer yet. So we're hoping that Aaron does get well.
Last one for you here, Joe. When you played in the conference championship game in advance.
Let me interrupt you, Mark. Wait a minute. It just reminded myself here about Aaron and coming to the Jets. I wondered, why in the heck did Green Bay let Aaron go?
Of course.
Okay, so they had a disagreement, so that, money, and then I saw Love play. Hey.
He showed you the love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. That explained a lot, right?
That explained a lot to me. Yes, sir. You got a 41-year-old guy, and you got this young man that is a physical stud, and they know what's between his ears, and the finances. I don't know what those issues were, but and I don't know exactly why they departed ways. But Love has got a great future if Lady Luck continues to keep him healthy.
Joe, do you remember waking up on this day, the day you're playing in the conference championship game, and a win means you're going to the Super Bowl, Super Bowl III? Do you remember what your focus, what your mindset was like? Did you get any sleep the night before?
Yeah, we treated that game like every other game, and I did. I say we. It was a team. We had curfews, we had responsibilities, and I'd been there before on a lesser level. In high school and in college, playing for the championship or being going to a big bowl game. It's each level, man. It's wow. We got a chance to win the championship. Wow, we got it. And when it came to the pro level, I said, yeah, I owe it individually. I owed it to my family that taught me, my brothers. I owed it to the guys that I grew up with in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, that I played ball in the street with, man. And whenever I had one of the greatest high school coaches ever came to my high school my junior year, a fellow named Larry Bruno. He taught me things about footwork and how I could use my quickness and all. And in fact, I asked Coach Bruno after Weeb Eubank. Weeb Eubank, as you know, I had as a head coach in pro football too when we won the championship.
Yeah.
And Weeb was already a champion, man. He was under Paul Brown. He studied. He won championship with the Baltimore Colts. So I was a fortunate player having the right kind of coaching, man. And if you're lucky enough to be able to follow the coaching and communicate with the coaches, they were dreams come true. Little league baseball. You're dreaming of winning that little league championship. If you're a kid, or if you got the right guidance, you'll want to win the championship. And being able to be a part of teams that did it on different levels, I'm just thankful. I'm thankful. I was just another piece, and I played well enough, and that we won.
Joe, that was one of my favorite all-time interviews, and you just made it possible. It is awesome to meet you. Thank you so much for making the time. Your assistant, Marion, is the nicest person I've ever met in my life. I appreciate her. I appreciate you. Wishing you all the best in 2024. Would love to do it again sometime.
Thank you, Mark. And Chris, is that your producer?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having me on, and let's look forward to 2 great games today.
Yes, sir. Broadway Joe Namath, the one and only, the guarantee, Super Bowl III champion, Super Bowl III MVP, All-Pro, NFL passing yards leader, AFL champion, NFL champion, the legend, Broadway Joe Namath. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. My friends, that was a bucket list moment. It happened yesterday. Logan Simpson, did you enjoy that? I apologize that some of the stuff in there was obviously time sensitive, right? And most of the time, we wouldn't replay an interview where there's some time sensitive material that, took place yesterday, the games, and et cetera. In this case, I thought 80% of the interview was still fresh content that was applicable. You guys would really enjoy it. And if there is a bigger name that has ever been heard on this station, I would love to know who it is. I'd love to know. It was a bucket list item for me, man. And I'll tell you, I didn't know whether to tease it or not to tease it or anything. Diesel, you tell me what you would have done. I may have mentioned this to you guys on Friday. I'd spoken to his assistant. His assistant said, Joe may be able to do it, and if he can, it'll be at 11 a.m., but he's going to be at an event. So either he can do it and he'll call in or he won't. And I'm like, do I tease this or do I not? I ended up going with my superstitious side, Diesel, and not teasing it because I'm thinking the guy's going to be at an event, right? He's going to be at an event. 80% chance he's just not going to call in or not going to remember to call in or whatever. He's at an event. So I didn't tease it, and it's 11, no call. Okay, like I said, he's not coming on. 11:01, 11:02, 11:03. I looked down at my phone, and it's like all caps. He's on the line! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And so thankfully, you prepped the interview just in case. You had what you were going to do if he didn't come through. Brother, that was a great experience. It was kind of the power of live radio, man. Like these things happen every once in a while. Diesel, I was completely caught off guard by that experience, man.
Yeah, I mean that's with something like that, you almost have to talk yourself up. You have to psych yourself up, and then when you hear that they're on the line, it's like that excitement and a little bit of fear hits you all at the same time. You're like, oh my goodness, Joe Namath is on the line. That's like Dan Marino calling in. That's like Steve Young calling in. That's like Jerry Rice calling in. Like, oh my God, this legend is calling my show.
It was incredible. And really, really appreciate that. It was a very cool interview. Glad you got to experience that. I wish, this guy says, I wish your show yesterday wasn't interrupted on the Fan Upstate. Guys, I don't control that at all. I don't control, what we air. And, that's all part of the time we do BetQL. Part of the time we have CBS Sports Radio on. So I don't control that, but I appreciate the support. I always do. We go to the phones. And guys, I want to give you a brief introduction on this caller. Okay. This caller was a local listener in the Panhandle. Now you guys might know that I hosted in the Panhandle and Rob Brown hosted in the Panhandle. When we hosted in the Panhandle, this guy was a loyal and P1 caller and listener. Then 4 years ago, I've been here 5 years. We had an opening. Rob Brown said, Mark Ryan, I would be really interested in this opening. Can I audition for it? Send me your tape. Rob Brown does a really nice job and gets the gig, right? Gets the gig. And then this local caller that called us when we were in the Florida Panhandle, which is the smallest market that I've ever worked in, and it amazes me that this could happen, right? Finds me on CBS Sports Radio. And when he called locally, we called him Dolphin Gary, and Dolphin Gary has called us here locally on the Fan Upstate right now. If I know Dolphin Gary, this is a call to tell me I told you so, Diesel, but we will see. Gary, what's good, man? How are you?
Hey, Mark, would I do that?
Not
to break my arm, patting myself in the back, but I told you in the AFC Championship game, Lamar Jackson would make the key mistake. I don't trust in the playoffs. And what do you know? Lamar makes the key mistakes. In the NFC, what I tell you, extremely incremental. You don't basically go to the Super Bowl from where the Lions were. And the game would end up being too much for him. And ended up being too much of a stage for Dan Campbell because of his decision-making. I agree with you, Mark. You kick the field goal with 8 minutes to go in the third quarter. You go up by 17, make it a three-score game. I think he let his emotions get the better of him. And I'm right once again, Mark Ryan.
How did I know this? Like, have you ever heard somebody nail it as well as I just nailed what you were going to come on here and do, Dolphin Gary?
Did I not say what I did say yesterday, though?
Yes. Hey, Gary, let's nail you to something. When are the Dolphins going to be in the AFC Championship game?
How's next year?
Okay. So when they're not, because they're the Dolphins and therefore they won't be, okay, will you be back here so I can make you eat it?
You know, I always call whatever, win or lose.
I've been here for 5 years, Gary. This is the first time you've called. I've been here for 5 years.
No, I've called you on CBS Radio.
Oh, I know. And it's great to reconnect with you, sir. By the way, do you
I just found out recently where you were. I didn't know where you had gone.
Oh, okay. Rob Brown is here too. This is your new station. Rob Brown hosts in the morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Mark, you think he'll remember me?
There's no chance he would forget. Like, none of us, we don't forget any of you guys. You called us every day. You guys busted our balls like no one else. Right?
But Mark, did I call those games perfectly? I mean, maybe
Gary, I just want to let you know you are welcome to call any time and break Mark's balls. Please, anybody that wants to put Mark in his place is a P1 caller of the show.
Hey, by the way, Gary, before you leave, I'm watching this show Reacher right now. What's the actor's name in Reacher? What's that name?
I have no idea, but you have a massive man crush on him.
I do. So this actor, Gary, in Reacher, is from the Panhandle. He went to Niceville High School. Something Ashton or something from Reacher is the actor's name. And when you were in the Florida Panhandle, when we were in the Florida Panhandle, he was there. It's
Alan Richson.
Alan Richson is from the Panhandle. And like Reacher is like the biggest show right now. Okay. And it doesn't help that he's so good looking, Gary, that he doesn't even look real. It looks like he's an AI generated image. Like people don't look like that.
You called himself a sexy man beast though yesterday. Mark,
I did. You heard that, and you called me out for that as well. Gary, hey.
Because I said I know you. That's why I called you out on it.
Gary, great picks.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
Great picks. Great predictions, pal. Thank you so much. I appreciate your call. Always passionate. Always fired up. And when you were in the Panhandle hosting, you could rely on Death, Taxes, and Dolphin Gary. And it was always coming through. But, largely, he always kept things positive. Largely the case. Okay, guys. So what do you say we get to this? Great Namath with Joe Namath, Mark/MARQ. I'll be whoever you guys want me to be. Glad to have it.
He'll be your Huckleberry.
That's it. Let's see here. Texter says, hey, Mark, if you like Reacher and have a huge man crush on Richson, you should watch Blue Mountain State. He plays the linebacker Thad and is hilarious. It's more so that I want to make sure I still have a wife by the time that show's done. That's really what's going on.
You're residents of South Carolina, Mark. You have to have a year of separation before you can get divorced. So if she decides that she wants to leave you for Alan Richson, she's got to take a year to think about it.
You guys can admit to me this, though, right? Like, there's not people that look like that walking around. You know, the other time I thought that, Diesel, I was in the locker room covering the Orlando Magic, and Dwight Howard walks in. And Diesel, like, there was not 1 ounce of fat on his body. He was, at this time, probably like 22, and he was 6'11", had the most pure skin I'd ever seen, and was just yoked and chiseled from granite. And it's just like, look, man, you can be both of these things can be true. You can be secure in yourself, right? And also say, that was a creation of God right there. Like, that guy was like chiseled by God's hands. And Alan Richardson, this dude from the Reachers, the same. There's not people like that walking around. There's not 6'5" chiseled dudes that look like mannequins walking around.
Yeah, most dudes with shoulders and an upper body like that also have a huge gut because they're power lifters. You're gonna get that big, you got to eat a lot of calories, and you get fat. But not him.
It's like, and with the show, can you cut it out with the gratuitous shirtless shirts? You know, like some of
I
us
think
guys,
you fast forward to those parts.
Come on, Diesel. This is the most offensive thing you've ever said on the radio to me, sir. Please cut the crap. Just to cut the crap. Texter says he also played Aquaman in CW's version of Superman. Let's see. That was also played Smallville. Mark, just a heads up, Blue Mountain State is rather vulgar. Diesel, yet again, we have the confirmation on this show, and I don't know what it's trying to tell us, that when we go non-sports, everything blows up. Phone lines blow up. Text line blows up. This is a sports show. You guys do want sports here, right? So how come I talk about Duke's Mayo 80 texts later? How come I talk about TV shows, childhood crushes, 3,000 texts? What's up with that? Like, it's like we do want sports on this sports station, do we not?
Man, the hits just keep on coming. We're gonna have to run through his call very, very quickly. But Rich from Chicago wants to say "I told you so" to Mark Ryan. Also, Rich, you got 60 seconds. Take your shots. Go ahead.
I'll be fast. This isn't a bust your balls call, but I normally agree with Mark on his plays, but I was the one that said take the Lions, and I was chirping pretty good in the first half, but they did cover. Both the dogs, the Chiefs and the Lions, covered the spreads, but a little disappointing in the coaching job that gambling Detroit did, which is kind of stupid. They could have won the game easily by burning the clock and running it out. They were dominating and decided to throw it all over the lot in the second half, which is not how they dominated the first half. So, the stock of the Detroit coach, who I like, went down a little bit. Should have won the game.
Well, completely. But I still think, Rich, he's the coach of the year. I still think he's the coach of the year, and I think he changed a culture, right, which is hard to do. He changed a reputation, which is even harder to do. And he still was too reckless. He coached like a player in that situation.
Right. I said disappointed, not down on him. I was surprised he's such a knucklehead to give up 2 field goals when you got a lead. You can run the ball. They were running the ball effectively. Could have burned the clock. And, you give me or you a 17-point lead at halftime, I don't think I'm losing that game.
Hey, Rich, good to hear from you, buddy, and thank you so much for all your support. How about that? 2 guys found us on the network, now calling the local show. Guys, please make it, okay? Please make it so that the local voice is also heard here, because this show will always be by the upstate for the upstate, all right? Was Clemson screwed, or did they choke on Saturday against Clemson fans' second favorite team, the Duke Blue Devils? That's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. You guys have a lot of choices out there. I truly do appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day here on the show. Guys, Clemson lost 72-71 to the Duke Blue Devils. Clemson had a 4-point lead with about 2 minutes to go in the game and lost it. I've heard quite a few jokes from Gamecock fans about this, that don't worry, because in this game, either way, either result, Clemson wins. And the theory there is, and we can talk more about that in a minute, is that Clemson fans adopt Duke. We don't know why. We don't know how. But there's a high propensity of that. And then, like what everyone always says is, well, Mark Ryan, I don't know. I'm a Clemson fan, and I don't know anyone who likes Duke. You guys got to understand that with what we do and with the platform that we're lucky enough to have, we talk to a lot of people, we meet a lot of people, and I can tell you, I don't fully understand the Clemson-Duke connection, but there is a Clemson-Duke connection. It seems with a lot of people, like somebody's dad went to Duke and mom went to Clemson, somebody's cousin went to Clemson, but there also seems to be this feeling of, well, Clemson's my football team, but Duke's my basketball team because I love basketball and Clemson's not good at basketball. There's an inordinate number of Clemson football fans who claim Duke for basketball. And if you are a true Clemson fan, you should never do that. That is a violation of rule number 1 of sports fandom, which says the following: thou is allowed one big school and one small school. You can claim UF and you can claim Furman FU. You can, no, I wasn't saying that at you, but you can claim Furman, right? UF and FU, you can claim those. Big school, small school. Under no circumstances can you claim 2 big schools. And so to claim Clemson football and Duke basketball is strictly prohibited. Allow me to make myself clear. Have I done so? I hope so. Because the next point of this is another violation that I saw. Diesel, there was a collection of Gamecocks in the front row under the basket at Cameron Indoor Stadium, some of whom took the time to send me tweets for some unknown reason, showing me their seats, like they're taking pictures from their seats. They're sending them to me.
Cool.
This is another rule of sports fandom. Diesel, you may have been the one, I'm not sure, that this originated from. If you are at a sporting event, you must be wearing colors from one of the 2 teams at the sporting event, or you can't wear the colors of another team. Okay? So like you can't, if you are going to a Baltimore Ravens Cincinnati Bengals game, you can't wear your Seahawks jersey to that game. Okay? You can either wear plain clothes or colors of the team.
I don't think I came up with that rule.
Okay.
I don't think that's mine.
But there's Gamecock fans in the front row.
Yeah.
At Cameron Indoor Stadium, which just confirms the audio clip that got Mongo in trouble. Diesel, do you remember what that was?
No.
When Mongo said he would rather the Gamecocks lose than he would rather what was that again? He went as far as to say that he would take a Gamecock loss if it also meant Clemson lost.
That was buffoonery. That was complete and total buffoonery.
Right. So in other words, like he would rather have his team lose if it meant Clemson lost,
yes,
than his team actually win.
Yes, he did say that.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching this game and I'm saying to myself, by golly, this is the exact same thing. These Gamecock fans are here for no other reason than to root against Clemson. Their team has a game. Their team is playing. On God's green earth, what are you doing at Cameron Indoor Stadium? other than to root against Clemson. I will never understand how the loss of your rival brings you more joy than your own team winning. Mongo said, Mark, I'll take the loss this week if you can guarantee me Clemson loses. I was like, but what if you would win? No, I'd rather have Clemson lose. I'll take the loss.
Pongo, Bongo, I can't remember his name.
I don't get it. Guys, I do not get it. Now, that brings to light a different question, because if you saw the officiating at the end of that game, and I don't like to be officials guy, but, you know, the problem is, Diesel, there are so many of these instances now. And you can go back to Tim Donaghy when he threw NBA games, where fans are convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the fix is in against their team. I'm going to tell you this. I don't think the fix is in, but for some reason in Cameron Indoor Stadium, the Dukies get the superstar whistle. They get the Jordan treatment. They get the LeBron treatment. And I'm not thinking they're consciously trying to throw the game, but everybody's got a story about their own team getting completely screwed in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Everyone's got a story. Fouls on Shefflin. PJ Hall not fouled. You know, it became kind of a disgrace at the end of that game, and a game that Clemson really needed to win and really had it in their back pocket, slipped away at the very end, and it's insanely painful because if you are a Clemson fan, you felt like you did enough to win. You felt like you did enough to win the game. So I'll ask you guys this question. 71307 on the text line, or 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show this afternoon. No matter who you're a fan of, what is the all-time worst your team has been hosed by the officials? No matter who you're a fan of, right? You don't have to be Clemson or South Carolina. This is not a question just for those two fan bases. And I'm asking you based on the time that it was so bad, you were sure somebody making the calls had money on the line. He had some scratch down. He had some skin in the game. What is that scenario for you? What was that game on your end? 71307 to start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Diesel, there's a game that is coined in Florida lore called the Swindle at the Swamp, and it was 2003. And this was just before we had instant replay. And I want to say 3 different times in that game, there were fumbles or non-fumbles, and the call went against the Gators every single time. This was not a fumble. The officials called a fumble, and Florida State gets the ball. Okay? This was a fumble. The officials call it not a fumble, and Florida State keeps the ball. And it happened 3 different times in one of those games where Florida's kind of dominating the flow of the game, and they lose. They lose. And it's still called the Swindle at the Swamp. Still called that. So, my friends, I put it to you. On the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, 844-326-3663, what is the all-time worst your team has been hosed by the officials? Screwed. That time it was so bad, you were sure somebody making the calls had money on the line. And when I say on the line, I mean like Tim Donaghy, that NBA official who bet on games, was taking the points, if you catch my drift. Clemson fans were sure of that. Sure of that. And, you know, I'm watching the end of that game, and I'm saying there was an armed robbery in Durham today. I called the authorities. The authorities didn't seem to care at all. So I don't know if you're a Clemson fan and you're upset by this, because it seems like a good number of you guys claim Duke anyway. So, okay, your second favorite team won. Okay? But then Gamecocks, you're not off scot-free either. The hell are you doing at a Clemson-Duke game wearing Gamecock gear? Okay? Like, you don't get to go to another game and wear Gamecock gear. That's not how it works. Okay? And it just furthers the notion that you would rather Clemson lose than have your team win. What are you doing there? This game doesn't involve you. You know? It was an epic troll job, but come on, guys. Like, have some pride. Oh, wait, you're Gamecocks. I'm sorry. You don't have pride. Sorry about that. Of course, guys, I kid. Wink, wink, I kid. Let's see here. Mark, a texter says, Mark, the pass interference call, Miami 2003. We should have 6 trophies. Texter says, this is somewhat lazily, I might add, the South Carolina-Michigan game. Texter, I mean, like, what about the South Carolina-Michigan game? Texter says, so it's the ref's fault that Clemson fouled with 1 second left. Get out of here. Texter, did you happen to see the sequence of calls that led to that, or no? You didn't see that, did you? You didn't pay any attention to that at all? Guys, Diesel, do you have one that comes to mind to you where the officiating and like, I think, Diesel, by and large, you and I are pretty anti-conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Like we don't like that kind of gist, that kind of narrative. I thought that was very toxic during COVID, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look at these guys are professionals at their career. They're professionals at this job. They get paid to do this. They've worked dozens or hundreds of games before your game was played that fateful Saturday night. But now all of a sudden they're willing to throw it all away just to screw over your team. Like, how self-centered are you? Like that, you realize this referee crew, they do want to call another game after this.
Sure.
They probably want to call a year's worth of games after this. So they're not going to put that on the line because of some personal affinity they might have had when they were a kid, because they grew up in the state of North Carolina. So of course they're going to throw the game on behalf of North Carolina. No, that's not true. I mean, refs make mistakes, and I don't know if the makeup call is a real thing or not. I don't know if they're willing to really say, all right, we blew this call, so we're going to call a bogus foul 2 possessions from now to make it up to you. I don't think they do that. You know, I genuinely don't think they do that. So fans like to be self-centered. I'm always of the camp of leave no doubt. Don't let the referees take a game away from you. Don't go on a 2.5-minute scoring drought within the last 5 minutes of the game if you want to win. You know, I've been watching games where a team is up 10 and all of a sudden you go on a scoring drought and then something comes right down to the line. You're like, the ref's fault. No, it's your team's fault for not hitting a damn shot in the last 2.5 minutes of the game.
Guys, how do you sense on this? We will take your feelings on this on the text line. If you have sent in a message on the YouTube, please, if you would be so kind, copy and paste to the text line as well, so we can see it. 71307 on the text line. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Diesel, I got another geographical quandary that happened to me yesterday. I was checking out the Bridgeway Brewing Company, which is in this awesome building that is literally a castle. Okay.
Yeah.
And
that's where the soccer stadium was supposed to be.
I was told I was going to Malden. When I get there, people say to me, and I tweeted out, people say, oh, you're in Simpsonville. What can we please decide what is going on here? Like, I'm so damn confused.
Yeah.
My wife says it's in Malden. I get there and I post and people are like, you're in Simpsonville, but it's right by.
What's the address? Is it Malden or Simpsonville?
Bridgeway Brewing Company. Diesel, it's on the same street that Malden High School's on.
Yeah.
So, like, is Malden High School in Simpsonville? Like, what? It's Malden. So I'm thoroughly confused by this.
Bridgeway Brewing Company has a Simpsonville address. I believe it's anything on that side of 385 is Simpsonville.
Okay.
And anything on this side is Malden.
Okay. Well, I will tell you this. It feels like everything on that side is Greenville. But you guys know I've joked with you guys about this for 5 years. Every 2 blocks, there's a different town name around here. In any case, I do want to tell you, Bridgeway Brewing Company was awesome. And they had like all of they had these options for like Prosecco and wine where you can add like black cherry juice to it and apple cider to it. And we loved it. We had 5 big screens in front of us. And I was thinking to myself, It's about time Malden had a place like this. Stop correcting me, Simpsonville people. It's about time Malden had a place like this. It was a blast. It was a blast. So thank you to the folks at Bridgeway Brewing Company for having us yesterday. Great time was had by all. Okay, guys. So let's do this, all right? Because everyone is throwing out the word choke, okay? Did Clemson choke? Did Clemson get hosed? Did Detroit choke? Did Detroit get hosed? Did Baltimore choke? No one would say Baltimore got hosed, right? Let's define what a choke actually is, and we'll do it next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the fan upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the fan upstate. Great to have you guys with us, man. Texter says, Mark, welcome to Greenville. Check your GPS carefully because the name of the road you're on may change 3 times before your next turn.
Yeah.
So says Randall and Greer. Texter says, I'm a ref. Don't get me wrong. It's high school soccer, but fans have no idea all the things a ref is looking at. Fans don't even know rules half the time. Let's see here. Continue. And the ref can't explain it to them. I have done varsity 4 and 5A boys games, 4A and 5A. Some of the games where the fans are the most irate were actually the best called games. The rule book for any sport is hundreds of pages long, and most fans only go off of what they feel. What they feel. It's the most thankless position in sports and in life, guys. I mean, if you work in the service industry, you get 9 complaints for every compliment. If you work in this business, you get about 8 complaints for every compliment. If you work as an official, you get all complaints and no compliments. When's the last time you said, man, that was a really well officiated game? On the first of never, right? You never said that. So anyway, let's, according to Maps on iPhone, the place you went to, Mark, had a Malden address. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Bridgeway Brewery was awesome. It was awesome, though. No matter what.
The crazy thing is it has a Simpsonville address if you search for it on Google. It has a Malden address if you search for it on Apple. Malden City Council approved the tax funds for their portion of building the Triumph Stadium. So Malden is putting tax money into an address in Simpsonville. Make it make sense.
But I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun. And I wish, like this place, a place like this has been a long time coming, man. Really cool spot. Love to see, new, really cool spots. Once you get out there and you see the large screens outside, and you sample some of the beverages and the food inside, that's a cool, sweet spot, man. So guys, I want to mention this. We have a hard time understanding what the word choking means. I've had people today hit me with, Mark, Detroit choked. Let me tell you, they choked yesterday. Why? Well, they had a 17-point lead in the second half, and they lost. That is a choke. Let me define, to the best of my ability, what a choke actually is in sports, okay? A choke is where your mentality crumbles. You are mentally weak in a moment where you need to be mentally strong. You are nervous in a time when you need to be calm under pressure. You are fidgety. You have the yips. That is choking. Okay? All of that is choking. Detroit played the same way they did all year long. They played that way in the second half. Now, what happened in the second half? They had a ball bounce off the face mask of their defender. San Francisco catches it. They have a rookie running back who's great, Jahmyr Gibbs, who fumbles. San Francisco gets it back. Okay? They choose to go for 2 4th downs instead of field goals. This is not choking. Okay? A fumble isn't a choke. A ball that bounces off a face mask isn't a choke. It was like anything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Lions in that half number 2. But they remained like an aggressive behavior is not something that somebody who's choking does. When you are choking, you play close to the vest. You play scared. You played afraid. Detroit didn't do that at all. But you know who did? Baltimore. And you know who else didn't? Clemson didn't choke. Give me a break. 4-point lead, 2 minutes to go, a bunch of bad calls mixed in. How are you telling me that's a choke? I mean, choke is the most overused phrase in the sports fan lexicon. Get over yourself. But if you happen to see a Baltimore Raven or a Dallas Cowboy, offer them the Heimlich maneuver. You can say to them, hey, Ray Lewis, I heard you were choking. Do you need the Heimlich, sir? Okay? You can say that because there's a high likelihood if you see a Baltimore Raven or a Dallas Cowboy, they will have been choking. That's what they do. The Baltimore Ravens, guys, I mean, that was a choke job. When you suddenly appear as half the team you used to be, that is a choke job. And what I was wondering yesterday before this game was played was, to what degree is the cool, calm, and collectiveness of Kansas City going to matter against a team in Baltimore that is clearly feeling the pressure here? Clearly feeling the pressure. Kansas City, not playing with house money, but they've been here before. They've been here a number of times. And so when you've got a Baltimore Ravens team that in the regular season averaged 28 points a game, they put up 10 when it matters most. When you've got Lamar Jackson in the regular season who has a quarterback rating of 103, in the game that matters most, has a quarterback rating of 76. Think about this for a minute here. Suddenly, a good team became bad under the bright lights and pressure of the moment. How does that happen? That, my friends, is the very definition of a choke. Choking to me only happens when it is obvious that a team is playing tight because of a situation in front of them. You guys know this. I had a former colleague who played on a team with Peyton Manning, and he told me that in the playoffs, Peyton Manning's backside was so tight, you couldn't fit a pin in it with a hammer. This teammate of Peyton Manning that I worked with told me this about Peyton. That is choking. Peyton Manning lost more first-game playoff games than anyone in NFL history. That's why he's called the best regular season quarterback of all time. Some people just don't have it under immense pressure. Patrick Mahomes does, Andy Reid does, the Kansas City Chiefs do. Baltimore does not. Now, Zay Flowers, dropping all of his flowers, didn't help. Taunting penalty, fumbling the ball at the 1-yard line. But despite all of that, Baltimore scored 10 points when they normally scored 28. Lamar Jackson produced a quarterback rating of 76 when he normally produces a quarterback rating of 103. And now you are about to have an MVP, a 2-time MVP, that has as many playoff wins as he does MVP awards. Make it make sense, please. Somebody please make this make sense, because it doesn't to me. Oh, Mark Ryan, it's a regular season award. Yeah, but value isn't determined in the regular season. Lamar Jackson has shown you that the regular season isn't valuable because they lose every postseason. He's not the most valuable player. You can give him best regular season award. You can give him that. He had, according to many, the best regular season. But value is determined right now. This is beginning to become like a Michael Jordan situation. You guys remember that? Where, like, you could say Michael Jordan really is the MVP every year, but just to keep it interesting, they give it to like Karl Malone or Charles Barkley or somebody else. But Jordan really is the MVP every single year. Give it to Lamar Jackson, fine. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP every single year. Mahomes talked about Lamar Jackson being the MVP last week, actually. He said, he's the MVP for a reason. Really? What is that reason? I watched that game yesterday. I saw Mahomes go 30 for 39, a QBR of 91.1. You know what Lamar Jackson's QBR was? 43. Mahomes virtually doubled him up. Give me a break. Some people are cut out for it. Some are not. We have got Chris Phillips coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Now, and the level of disrespect is next level. And as much as you might feel like the Gamecock football program has been disrespected, I've never seen anything like the lack of attention paid to a team that is 17-3. As recently as last week, my go-to site for projecting which teams are going to make the tournament had South Carolina as a 7 and 8% chance to make the tournament. They're 17-3. They're 5-2 in the SEC. They won an SEC game yesterday with Saturday with no problem whatsoever. Hello, there's some really great basketball going on in this state. Clemson had a victory stolen from them. South Carolina is 17-3. Okay. Like, what needs to happen? I just keep seeing the Rodney Dangerfield. I get no respect. I tell you, I get no respect. I keep hearing that. I keep seeing that in front of me. So there you go. Like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. When is the love going to come to the Gamecocks? Because they should be in the tournament easily, right? This should be an easy tournament team. And yet, locally, nationally, this team gets no love whatsoever. It is the most mind-boggling thing to me I've ever seen. And guess what? They're still not in the top 25. They're 17-3 in a major conference. The team, by the way, that they beat easily last week, Kentucky. The same Kentucky that has more losses than South Carolina, is still in the top 10, Diesel. Diesel, you talk about helmet scouting, brother.
Yeah.
Kentucky's in the top 10. They lose at South Carolina by what, 20? 20 points.
Well, that is if you believe that the game ever went final. I say the game never went final, so South Carolina never won that game because Calipari, and I can't wait to get Chris's thoughts on this. Calipari pulled the team off the court with 4.8 seconds to go, and then all of a sudden, the screen says final. They didn't play the last 5 seconds of the game. The game never ended.
Hey, Chris Phillips, what's good, man? SEC Unfiltered is the site. Great to catch up with you. Have you ever seen anything like this level of disrespect, Chris, where Kentucky it has more losses, South Carolina destroys them, they're in the top 10 by way of their name, and the Gamecocks are still unranked by way of their name? Make this make sense, please.
Well, Mark and Ease, the first things first, appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, it is crazy when you look at it. I feel like what I'm starting to figure out is college basketball, there isn't a sport where it matters more if you are a have or a have not than college basketball when it comes to the rankings. And, I know the rankings don't mean even a ton, right? I was going to say they don't mean everything. It's all about, do you make the field of 68? But at some point, right, Mark, you'd think somebody would tip their cap and give credit where it's due. And I mean, South Carolina had a really impressive week, went 2-0, beat Kentucky, followed it up with a gritty win over Missouri. I know not a great Missouri team. And I don't know if that's people's reservations in regards to, you look at the schedule and maybe they don't have that big signature win, like outside of Kentucky, that is, against the Tennessee or an Auburn or what have you, which they'll get that opportunity tomorrow night when they go to Knoxville. But I mean, again, at some point you got to give credit where credit's due, right? You're 17-3, you're 5-2 in the league. I mean, the only bad loss I see on the schedule, guys, is the loss to Georgia on the home floor, and maybe if they didn't lose that one, they would be ranked. But I was honestly stunned when I didn't see South Carolina in the AP top 25 today. And again, it really, what it really is, guys. It goes to show how important preseason hype and expectations are. Because if South Carolina was a fringe top 25 team and it started 17-3, well, there's no doubt they'd be in the top 25. But the thing is, they started so far outside of the top 25, picked to finish dead last in the conference. And listen, I was one of the doubters, right? I did not see this type of run coming, but I've also reached the conclusion much sooner than obviously the AP has that this team deserves respect for what they've done on the floor. And, here's the thing. The great thing about respect is, guys, it can be earned. It doesn't have to be given. And the Gamecocks have a great opportunity to earn respect, not just on a SEC-wide level, but on a national-wide level tomorrow night if they can take down Tennessee.
So, Chris, from a statistical standpoint, can you give us any clue as to why, for example, South Carolina sits at 50 in the net rankings, 54th in the Pomeroy rankings? I mean, again, you're having a fantastic season in the win-loss record, but it's not being shown in what is supposedly the analytical rankings of these teams. And do you look at any one of these as one that you like the best, or do you think you kind of have to go with the consensus of all of them because somebody's getting it wrong somewhere?
Yeah, I think you got to go with the consensus, Diesel. Admittedly, I'm really happy there are people that are smarter than me that handle the net stuff, the net rankings, and because it can get very confusing, right? It's just not as simple as here's what your record says you are, that's what you are. And I understand why in college basketball, right? Because not all records are built equally, and different wins are weighted differently, quad 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I mean, I think the one thing that maybe South Carolina is missing right now, guys, they don't necessarily have that signature road win. I mean, if you really want to nitpick them, right? I mean, you lost at Clemson. You got blown out at Alabama. Again, you get a big opportunity tomorrow night. And as the schedule goes, there's going to be more of these road games. But I mean, that's the only knock I can really find, guys. I mean, it's you only had one blemish in non-conference play, and it was to a Clemson team that, at the time was top 25. And I know they've struggled in ACC play, hasn't exactly helped South Carolina's strength of schedule or nets or anything like that. But thankfully, Diesel, I'm not trying to give you a cop-out answer, but thankfully there's people that handle that stuff that are way smarter than me, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, to be honest with you. I just look at it as like, who you play is who you play. And especially when you're a team like South Carolina who was picked so low, like, I mean, what wins do you point to and say, well, that wasn't a good win, that wasn't a good win? Like, I know Missouri's 0-7 in conference play. That's a huge storyline in itself. But now you've beaten them twice. You've beaten them at their place and at home. So I don't think there's such thing as a bad win in the SEC. And I mean, again, 5-2 in conference play and 17-3 overall should speak for itself, I think, especially when you're in the SEC.
Chris, we had a debate last week, best coach in the Palmetto States. And unbelievably, it comes down to two, Dawn Staley and Dabo Swinney. And this is even more unbelievable. The winning percentage for both is identical, 798 at their respective school. They both have 2 national championships. So, Chris Phillips, who is the best coach in the state? Is it Dabo or is it Dawn?
I'm going to go with Dawn Staley, Mark, because, and I know what the pushback will be, and I don't totally disagree with it, right? Is it harder to win a national championship in football than it is in women's college basketball? I would agree with you, yes. I always say that at South Carolina, until Dawn Staley wins another one, I still think you could argue Ray Tanner is the greatest coach ever in the history of South Carolina. And it's because he has multiple national championships in a sport in baseball where it's extremely hard to even get to Omaha, much less to do what they did and go back to back. So, I mean, I understand people who are going to push back and say, the difficulty of the task is greater. But I look at where we are currently, and maybe Mark, it's recency bias, but the way that Dabo Swinney has failed to adapt and evolve and grow, and he's sort of, at least in the short term, let that be his downfall. Dawn Staley has not had that dip, right? She has not had that outside of like her first year when it was a rebuilding project. South Carolina women's basketball has been elite start to finish during her tenure, and obviously they're right there on the path again this year, and they're going to be right there in the mix. I would say probably at worst an Elite 8 team, probably Final Four, if you will, at least. So I'd go Dawn Staley right now. I mean, again, maybe it's some recency bias just because of the way Dabo and Clemson have fallen off, and what he's done there has been extremely impressive. But I got to go with Dawn Staley at least right now.
Chris, who is the single most impressive player in the SEC right now in basketball?
Diesel, it's got to be Dalton Connect, man, from Tennessee. I mean, that dude is a walking video game every single night. I mean, he has 25 points on a night. It's a disappointing night. I mean, he's putting up 30 plus nightly like it's nothing. I mean, the dude can make it from anywhere in the gym. He's got size. He's got range. I mean, South Carolina is going to get a full dose of tomorrow. And there are other great players, but I just, Dalton Connect is the guy. It feels like night after night after night, Diesel. It's just putting up these crazy highlights. I mean, I think he, over a 3-game span, had like over 90 points. I think maybe he was one of the first SEC players to do that, or a very short list, if you will, of guys. He broke the Tennessee 3-game scoring record. So what Dalton Connect is doing at Tennessee is really incredible, and it's fun to watch. And again, it's just like watching a my player on NBA 2K go out there and dice up opponents.
Chris, we had this kind of game within the game, Inception style of existential sports question on Friday, and I'd like to bring you into it. When you decide to root for the South Carolina Gamecocks or whomever anyone's team may be, what exactly are you rooting for? And I was thinking about this because if you're a Kentucky Wildcat basketball fan, you're not rooting like the best player can leave the team and you're still a Kentucky Wildcat fan. So you're not a fan of the players. John Calipari, that's not what you're rooting for, right? If John Calipari can leave the team and you're still going to be a fan of the Kentucky Wildcats. So you're not a fan because of the coach. What are you rooting for? What specifically? Are you rooting for a jersey? Are you rooting for a feel good? Diesel said you're rooting for a chemical reaction in your brain, a release of dopamine. When you, especially now in college basketball, with these teams changing overnight, where the sport has evolved to be where everybody is a one and done, just like Kentucky. Everybody has that team. Everyone has half the roster turning over every year. Do you ever stop to wonder what you're rooting for? Because there is no continuity anymore. How do you answer the what in terms of a fan's rooting interest?
Yeah, Mark, I think that's a really good question. And I think the fascinating thing about that question is you poll 100 different people, you may get 100 different answers. It's kind of like asking somebody, what is your why, right? It's everybody's got a different why of why they do things, or, why they wake up and get after it every single day. So like why, or what's the reasoning for pulling for your team? And I think to your point, Mark, one of the greatest challenges because I think there are a large group of people that one of the reasons their fandom is to a point of the diehard level, if you will, the fanatical level, is because of the quote unquote folk heroes that would roll through, right? Their favorite players, the personalities that take over. And I think that is one of the reasons, that was their what, or that was their why. This new era of college football really doesn't sit with them, right? Like none of us really love it necessarily, but a lot of us are able to cope with it much better than those that maybe, Mark, to your point, their what is, well, I just love my favorite players. Like that's a big part for them. So when you ask me that question, the what, or why do you pull for the team you pull for, and this, again, it varies from person to person, but I think more so it's like pulling for your hometown. It's like where I'm pulling for who I am, what I am, where I'm from, a lifestyle, if you will. So being from the state of South Carolina, right? I mean, very early on, you're taught to choose between South Carolina and Clemson, and that's the side you resonate with, and that's who your friends are, and that's who the people that you surround yourself with. It seems like they're either garnet and black or orange and purple. I think they can go for any school, right? You're kind of pulling for a way of life almost, and an identity. You're pulling for an identity, what it means to be a Gamecock, what it means to be a Tiger, what it means to be a Georgia Bulldog, what it means to be a Tennessee Volunteer, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you're pulling – that's the best way I could put it, Mark and Diesel. You're pulling for an identity, a specific identity to be – because it's funny, Mark, I think we all know better, but each fan base in the SEC and each fan base across college football, college sports, they all think their fan base is different and unique. And certainly there are unique qualities that, separate each, but it is interesting to see how similar we really are to each other when you stop and look and talk to people and interact and et cetera. We all love our team. We all pull for them each and every single Saturday, each and every single day, whatever. But I think you pull for that identity, right? It's like, it's just what, since you were young, maybe you can't even explain it, but it's what you identify with. You bleed those colors. And again, once it gets in your blood, it just seems to never leave you. So that would be my what. But again, I think the beautiful thing about that question, Mark and Diesel, is you can get a bunch of different answers and none of them are wrong.
Now, Chris, we know obviously from years and years of doing what you did prior to switching over to SEC Unfiltered that you are a diehard Gamecock through and through. But has there ever been another school that maybe had your eye kind of turning just a little bit, like you have a special affinity for a second institution?
You know what's funny, Diesel? You're going to get a kick out of this. The only other school that I can really think of is – because I've always been a Gamecock, like you mentioned, through and through since I was 11 years old. And, I mean, that's it. So, but the one school that I really enjoyed watching with my grandfather was we had a condo up in Beach Mountain, North Carolina, and we'd venture over to Boone. And I remember vividly watching Armani Edwards and Coco Hillary and the boys win 3 straight national championships. And I feel like we just kind of always had a soft spot because we were up in that area and we were vacationing up there and hanging out. And my grandfather just seemed to really gravitate towards it and watch those games. And so, I mean, if I had a second team, Diesel, I would say App State. I'm not just saying this because you asked me the question, but it really would be the Mountaineers. I've been to a game at the Rock, and I mean, and I love that area, obviously. I mean, I still go up to Beach Mountain, still go to Boone. So it's a great time, and I really do love it. So I think App State would probably be my number 2 team, if I'm being totally honest.
Well, Chris, you are an honorary member of App Nation. I don't know how often you, as a kid, went skiing up there. I don't know if you're a skier, snowboarder, whatever. But some wild video came out over the weekend, Chris, and I'll try to send you a link so you can see this. But this was during the night session of skiing at Beach Mountain sometime in the past week or so. A very large black bear was spotted walking across the slopes as people were skiing right past this bear. So if you go snowboarding up at beach anytime soon, keep your head on a swivel.
Diesel, good point, man. I was sent that video because I ironically enough, as we're having this conversation, I'm actually going skiing at Beach Mountain this upcoming weekend. So if you don't hear from me next Monday, me and that bear might have gotten in a tussle.
Hey, Chris, no one likes a kiss up, man, with the whole choosing Appalachian State thing. Okay, so it's just
no, that's not true. I like a kiss up. That's fine.
Hey, if you want an off the wall answer, though, I will tell you this: they weren't necessarily my team, but when I would play NCAA football when I was a kid, for some reason I feel like I was always playing with Michigan or Texas, and I think that just screams to branding, though. Like they were like the 2 big schools in college football, whatever. So. That would be my other answer, but really, truly, App State. I got a soft spot for App State.
Chris, how surprised are you that, even with all of the hate and the Tyler and Spartanburg and all of the criticism, that, to me, the biggest surprise thus far in the offseason, and maybe it shouldn't be a surprise, right? The greatest predictor of future behavior is past behavior. I'm just surprised that despite all of the criticism, that Clemson is still largely non-participatory in the transfer portal. Has that hit you the same way that it's hit me, or is this what you expected?
Yeah, I've been stunned by it. I mean, I would have predicted that, the heat is on and Dabo Swinney would have made moves in the portal. And I know that people will say they offered some guys or whatever, but I mean, I feel like if Clemson was acting aggressively in the transfer portal, that they're going to get somebody. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it stunned me, Mark. It really has. I mean, I think, listen, I know you've spoken out on it, and I would say I respect it too. I mean, I respect Dabo Swinney wanting to bet on himself and bet on his ways, but, more often than not, we see when you don't adapt, you die. And typically when you're stuck in your ways and you're steadfast in your ways, that it doesn't end very well. Now, maybe this will be a case where it doesn't, but I just don't see how, with the ever-changing landscape of college football and how vital the portal is. And, Clemson's recruiting well, guys. They're recruiting well, but they're not recruiting a top 5 clip. They weren't even top 10 this past cycle. And so you would think it would behoove them to use the portal. And I tell you, this guy's on a side note. Had a conversation with my good friend Josh Pate over the weekend or last couple of days. And, he mentioned that there very well could come a time in the near future where we're seeing college football coaches, basically your favorite coaches don't love NIL portal, what it's done to the sport. They dislike it maybe even more so than the common fan does. And, when he was mentioning that, you could see some coaches stepping away and taking some time off until college football corrects itself. Like, I look at a Dabo Swinney, and it just makes too much sense, guys. I mean, it just makes way too much sense based off of what he's said in the past. And I could be totally wrong, by the way. But when you're thinking of top candidates of like, okay, who would do that? Who's probably not all that fond of what college football is right now? I mean, I don't know. Maybe a Dabo Swinney would be a guy like, that could be a candidate for that. So, no, I was stunned, Mark, but at the same time, I mean, it's Dabo Swinney sticking to his guns, and only time will tell if it pays off for him.
Chris, we're running out of time here. I just want a one-word answer from you here. 1 to 10, how burnt is Texas going to be once they join the SEC and start hearing all the horns down chants, all the horns down posters, the 101 ways that SEC fans are going to come at Texas for being so Charmin soft over horns down? How burnt are they going to be?
On a scale of 1 to 10, Diesel, I think a 15, because there's not going to be any flags or anything for horns down. So, I mean, you got to think all these guys have been waiting. Like, I can't wait to throw the horns down. So, yeah, they're going to be chapped, to say the least.
There you go. Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered. Always great to have you on, my friend. Congrats on the new venture. We'll talk soon.
Mark and Diesel, appreciate you guys.
Take care. Chris Phillips, we've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you. Thank you for making us part of your afternoon. As is always the case on an afternoon at 5 o'clock p.m., it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
They have a hard time knowing doo-doo from apple butter.
5.
At number 5, let's start with Baltimore, the Ravens. Guys, how do you explain what happened yesterday? How do you make sense of that? Best team in the NFL all year long, 13-4. It was an NFL season without a great team. You know, there have been 28 seasons in NFL history where the team with the best record had no losses or 1 loss. 28. All right, Baltimore had 4. There were no great teams, yet a team that averaged 28 points a game produced 10. A quarterback who had a 103 rating in the regular season produced a rating of 76. And you might say it's completely and totally unfair. But, guys, I think Baltimore is the Dallas of the AFC. If you see a Baltimore Raven walking around, please give him the Heimlich maneuver. When that person looks behind you and feels like they've been violated, said, "Oh, I thought you were choking. Sorry, I was just trying to help."
It's fun as I get to use that maneuver on our friend Brandon very soon. He is a diehard Ravens fan. Brandon, whose house we went and saw the Super Bowl at.
Yeah.
He's a diehard Ravens fan. So you're telling me I need to sneak up behind him and pretend giving him the Heimlich and say, "Oh, I thought you were choking."
I thought you were choking. Yes. Just like your team does. Guys, I'm left to draw no other conclusion at that point. Everything was set up for them. They were at home. They were favored. They were relatively healthy. And they did jack squat all game long. There was a stretch in that contest yesterday where in 11 combined possessions, Kansas City and Baltimore, the only score was 3 points by Kansas City. And you might say, well, Mark, it's not like Kansas City lit up Baltimore either. Did you notice how the Chiefs systematically destroyed them? There never was a moment where you felt like Baltimore was going to win outside of maybe the opening kickoff, right? Never even a moment. Kansas City did exactly what they had to do to win. Baltimore, my friends, I mean, what is the narrative there? Outside of they can't get it done when it matters the most, they're about to have a quarterback who has as many total playoff wins, 2 in his career, as he does MVPs. It's not the most valuable player, man. Value is determined right now, not in the regular season. Here's a play from in that game. Lamar Jackson caught a pass of his own for 13 yards. This was about the only highlight for Baltimore yesterday.
This helps Baltimore with the emotion of the game. Keeps it at 1 score.
2nd and 5. Ball batted up into the air and caught by Jackson. He caught his own pass.
That's one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. Lamar uses the instincts, the God-given gifts, the awareness to go beat him to the punt and makes one of the greatest plays you'll ever see in a championship game.
Well, Reed was going to have it.
So, yeah, it's about the only highlights. I mean, it was systematic destruction by a team that was an underdog, and Baltimore is the Dallas of the AFC. MVP Lamar, MVP my arse. Next up.
4.
Clemson against Duke. Many a Clemson fan very upset with the Zebras on Saturday. In my opinion, rightfully so. I don't know what it is. If I had to guess, I don't think any of these officials were paid off, but there's something about that Cameron indoor whistle, the fans being so on top of you. I think you would see if you did an official study that Cameron gets more calls than just about anybody else. And the proof of that is that every single other school that goes to Cameron has a story about how they got completely screwed in a game in their history. It just so happens that Clemson's, unfortunately, was yesterday. I don't consider Clemson to be on the bubble. I think Clemson is still relatively comfortably in, but that would have eased the comfort level for Clemson fans. And to lose by 1 is absolutely brutal. So I'd ask you guys this question. How do you define a choke? Is what Clemson did yesterday choking? 4-point lead, under 2 minutes to go? Is what Baltimore did choking? Choking to me is when you are mentally affected by the pressure of the game in an obvious way. I don't think Clemson choked per se, okay? I think they got some really bad calls. I don't think they played their best. They played well enough to be in it at the end against a top 12 team. But boy, you got to feel like you got screwed. And I'm going to ask you guys this question, okay? What is it doesn't matter what team you're a fan of. What is the one sports event where you remember your team got screwed over the most and you were convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that the officials were paid off in that game? We all have a game like that. Mine was the swindle at the Swamp in 2003. Florida had 3 different fumbles go against them, all in the wrong direction. Like one was a fumble and they said it wasn't. One was not a fumble and they said it was. All of them went against Florida. Florida State wins the game by like 3 points. Florida dominated the game. We all have that game where we're like, yeah, man, like if there ever was a game where the officials were paid off, it was that one. What is that game for you? Next up.
3.
At number 3 on the show this afternoon. Oh, Detroit. I was pulling for them, man. They were America's team. They were the same feeling as a miracle on the Miracle on Ice. There was a movement behind the Detroit Lions. And, brother, they were right there starting the second half, an 87% chance to win. 24-7 lead. Please don't put Detroit in the Baltimore-Dallas category. Please don't do that. Okay? Folks, again, you heard me say, it's when you are mentally affected, visibly so, by the pressure of a game. You've seen a guy choke on the free throw line, right? Just super tight. You heard me say that my former co-host, Booger McFarland, worked with Peyton Manning. He told me that in the playoffs, Peyton was so tight you couldn't fit a pin in his backside with a hammer.
I once saw a college player choke so bad at the free throw line, he didn't get the ball halfway to the goal. He just shot the ball straight up and straight down.
I mean, it's crazy. Like pressure does weird things to people. But Detroit played as aggressive in the second half as they did the first. They went for fourth downs, which they did all year. Detroit in the regular season was 18 for 21 on fourth downs of 3 yards or less in opponent's territory. That's 86%. They did what they always do. But they got that really weird tipped pass that hit the Detroit Lions player's face mask. Brandon Ayuk caught it. Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled, combined with the failed fourth downs. And you blink and you look up, and suddenly San Francisco has won the game. My heart breaks. Dan Campbell is right, by the way, when he says that you're never promised to get back there, okay? And he says right here, he has no regrets for going on fourth down.
I just felt really good about us converting and getting our momentum and not letting them play long ball. You know, they were bleeding the clock out. That's what they do. And I wanted to get the upper hand back, you know, and it's easy hindsight, and I get it, you know, I get that. But I don't regret those decisions, and that's hard. You know, it's hard because, you know, we didn't come through. It wasn't able to work out, but I don't. And I understand the scrutiny I'll get. That's part of the gig, man. But, you know, we just didn't work out.
Guys, in life, and I said this on a video, like we had a live video going on during that 4th and 3, fourth quarter, where Detroit could have kicked the field goal to tie. Okay, it's on my Twitter page. Wifey was filming. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, kick the field goal. Dan, kick the field goal. Dan, what are you doing? Be aggressive, not reckless. This is all on video from last night. Aggressive, not reckless. Dan coached the game like he was a player. And you just can't do that. I love you, Dan. You're the coach of the year. You changed the culture. You changed the reputation. Those are two of the hardest things to do. Both of these things can be true. You're amazing as a head coach. You've done wonders for that organization. They are lucky to have you. You're going to do great things there. And you should have kicked the field goal to tie the game. Dan Campbell also spoke a very honest truth. Normally, you hear something like this about a month after the game. This, I might imagine, was pretty harsh to hear, pretty hard to hear right after the game ended in Detroit.
It's a lesson learned. And look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year. That's the reality. And if we don't have the same hunger and the same work, which is a whole nother thing, once we get the offseason, then we got no shot of getting back here. I don't care how much better we get or what we add or what we draft. It's irrelevant. It's going to be tough. Everybody in our division is going to be loaded back up. And, you know, you're not hiding from anybody anymore. Everybody's going to want a piece of you, and which is fine, you know, which is fine. But so it's hard. You want to make the most of every opportunity, and we had an opportunity, and we just couldn't close it out.
I don't get it. I feel like that is a very difficult loss to swallow. And your heart breaks that it happened to the city of Detroit, who's had nothing but heartbreak. Okay, we check on the text line to see what folks are saying about this. Someone on the text line says, Mark, 17-point lead blown is choking. Based on what? Like, did they do something wrong? Did they do something where clearly they were having the yips from a mental situation? No. Okay, they had a ball off a face mask. They had a fumble. They always go for fourth downs. They did. I said at the start of the second half, I said, everyone in Detroit's worried about an epic collapse, but I promise you, Dan Campbell's not going to clam up. Nobody on Detroit clammed up. There were a couple kind of fluky plays that worked against him. But sometimes guys, comebacks happen. Doesn't mean you choked. Choked is when you kind of mentally shut down. That's what Baltimore did. I mean, their score was the epitome of shutting down. 28 points in the regular season, 10 points yesterday. How could you say anything else? Next up.
2.
At number 2, Kansas City, man. The Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid is now entering the category of Bill Belichick, Chuck Noll, Bill Walsh, and Joe Gibbs. Why? Those are the only guys who have won more than 2 Super Bowls. Now Andy has a chance to win his 3rd. What an amazing job. They look like the more ready team, more mentally strong team, more efficient team from beginning to end. They looked elite. They were in total control on the road at the number 1 seed as a 4.5-point underdog. And how about Patrick Mahomes? Some are saying he's the best player they've ever seen. I think you can now say that Patrick Mahomes is the only player in NFL history who is at least entering the conversation with Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. Tom Brady was winning Super Bowls at 42, 43 years old. Patrick Mahomes is 28. He's playing for his 3rd in 2 weeks. Some of his stuff, just his instinct, that unbelievable pitch to Travis Kelce when he's falling down and Kelce makes a diving catch, that stuff is just special, man. And there's no coaching for that. And I'll tell you what, this is what it really appealed to me. In an era where many of us are turned off by the greed and the money first and all that seems to matter is the money, there was something refreshing to me yesterday watching Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Both of those guys are making $500 million, okay? And you could tell that mattered not one iota yesterday, that there were some things money can't buy. Despite all the money they're making, they knew that their reputation, their legacies were on the line with that performance. And unfortunately, Lamar Jackson's legacy is that of a choker who should never be the MVP. And Patrick Mahomes is essentially Michael Jordan. You probably should give him the MVP every single bloody year. And finally,
1.
You heard me say it. They had an 87% chance to lose. The 49ers did at the start of the 3rd quarter. They found a way to win. One of the reasons that's so impressive is because of every coach actively who has won a Super Bowl, and there are 9, if you include Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll, all have done so at their team between the 2nd and the 7th season. This is Kyle Shanahan's 7th season in San Francisco. One might say it could be his last chance, assuming that stat plays out. Yet I really valued the fact that San Francisco team did not buckle, did not slow down, was opportunistic, waited for their moments. And you knew at the end of the game when they had a chance, knowing Detroit had to pass, that the Lions had no shot at that point. Best defensive line in football, Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave. Incredibly impressive comeback and incredibly painful if you're a Panthers fan, watching Christian McCaffrey continue to extend his franchise-setting record for touchdowns in San Francisco.
Also watching Steve Wilkes run that defense.
Yeah.
The guy you could have had and the player you traded away with the same team now in the Super Bowl.
How about Nick Bosa on the San Francisco 49ers? Calling out the head coach of the other team? This is not something you hear every day.
It really seemed like when Dan Campbell decided to really challenge you guys and go for it on fourth down, passing up very makeable field goals, that he gave you guys the opportunity to seize momentum.
That definitely bit him in the butt. I feel like going for it on fourth down a lot kind of will come back to bite you.
It will, and it did, and it does, and that is respectful. That's who they are, and that they have an identity, and that he's given them that identity. But guys, when analytics takes precedence, overrules you in terms of situational time and space, it's the fourth quarter. You're down by 3. You're in field goal range. It's not 4th and inches at the 2-yard line. It's 4th and 3 at the 30. Kickers are essentially automatic these days. Take the bleeping field goal. Still love you, Dan, but kick the damn field goal, please. Oh, my wife, Diesel, we had this whole emotional thing going on. By the way, those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance. Now it's your chance to chime in. What you can do on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, 844-326-3663. The text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can hit us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. So, guys, my wife is a Detroit Lions fan. Her family is from Michigan. You might remember last August, I went up to Michigan to go see her father's, to attend and give a eulogy at her father's funeral. And so it's been really touching to me because my wife is a firm Category 2 female sports fan. She's not hardcore. She doesn't hate it. She enjoys the social element of sports, tailgates, parties, etc., get-togethers. But she's been hardcore when it comes to these Lions. Like, she has to see them. And so there was something that was really cool about, like, it was emotional because we knew that, her dad, passed away in April. And she kept saying to me during this run that I wish he was here. I wish she could see this. And she would get kind of tears in her eyes. And I said to her, babe, I said, he is watching this. He is seeing this. Don't think that he isn't, like he is where we think he is, and good things happen there. And I think you're allowed to tap into what's going on earth when you're up there. And so I think he is enjoying this and taking this in. And it stinks that Detroit didn't seal the deal yesterday, man. But look, a lot of these teams, you don't get to the Super Bowl your first swing, right? You get to it after a while. All right, my friends, we pose the following question to you next. Which team's fan base has suffered the most in the National Football League? That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, JD, Madcraft, Dan B, all you guys who are in here all day long, thank you so much. Glad to see that y'all jump right back in here, even though it's been quite a while since we've done a Facebook stream. Man, people get sick and it kind of derails the whole thing. Mark's finally on the mend. We're both stuffy as hell today, man. This stinks, but hey, you guys jumped right back in as soon as we started this thing back up again, so we appreciate that.
Love you guys very, very much, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.